Failure is a part of any good business. This is the Focus Group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Hey, welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here in New York with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett, down in Philadelphia, or it could be the shore, but rest assured, we are distant from each other. We're geographically quite distant. We're not socially distant because Tim and I talk all the time, but we are geographically distant. FocusGroupRadio.com is the URL you want to check out for all our shows, including Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. About 20 minutes long, 3 topics. Subscribe, like, and rate that. And as I said, FocusGroupRadio.com. So here we are. And I don't want to say it's the first official. No, we have like a couple more days, then we're into June, right?
Yeah, I guess it's the first official week of summer since, or no, well, it's the Wednesday after Memorial Day, right? You can now wear white, John. You can wear your white shoes now and your white pants.
Kathleen Turner, one of your favorite movies.
Serial Mom.
Serial Mom, the Buckskins. Yeah. You and I come from a state that had pretty firm rules about dress code and things like that. And you and I swore by the Preppy Handbook. And then in life later, Tim got to meet and become friends with Lisa Birnbach, the author of that book. She was our personal hero, right?
As did you. Yeah. Remember that day? That was the one show I wanted to go to, and Amtrak stops. Remember?
Was that the refrigerator on the track or something?
Yeah, we hit a refrigerator and on the way up on Amtrak.
Think about that for a minute. What is this? Uzbekistan, you're on a train. And then Tim calls the studio and our producer, Katie. And this was the day we had been waiting for because Lisa Birnbach was going to be in with, I think, Chip Kidd.
Chip Kidd, yeah.
The book designer. And he had done her new book. What was this? The follow-up called?
True Prep.
Not as good as the first one. But anyway. Tim's guy. Did you wear your whale pants, your whale corduroys?
Oh, I had a whole costume. I had the duck mallard pants on. We both dressed very preppy. And I got there for the last 5 minutes. I think you did a Tim's list for them. You stepped in and did the list with them. But it was fun to meet them anyway. We got a good picture. And then we invited her to our holiday show. We did for many years holiday shows at Sirius. And remember, she was supposed to be on. We gave her a specific time. She showed up 35 minutes late with some guy from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
He was the man who delivered the pizza in the Mr. Hand class, where and Spicoli was I forget the actor who played him, but Sean Penn, thank you. Yeah, and hey, by the way, in the booth we have Garrett and Steve bringing us out to you with the magic of technology. We can't do it without them. Yeah, anyway, so one of the actors...
she didn't show up with Sean Penn.
She didn't show up with Sean Penn, but the actor who played the pizza delivery guy, we ended up later doing a funny little thing. Well, it wasn't so funny. Well, it kind of was, but Tim, years later, had this list of people who'd been on our show that had passed away. Our dead celebrity was our first dead celebrity, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't funny. And our second one, do you remember who the second one was?
The second one... Why should I?
One of your favorite guests. One of your favorite guests of all time. You mimic it all the time.
Gene Nidich from Weight Watchers. When you are obese, you shop with other obese women at Lane Bryant.
Yeah, not a list you want to be on.
That was the whole interview, right, Tim? We did that, and she repeated that line like how often?
Well, and we had to be good because, we had to be good. And there's been several interviews like that we've said over the years. We should probably do a best of our train wreck interviews. That would actually be a good thing to put together, the train wreck interviews, and kind of splice them together and then do the backstories on them. Because some of them were I could not look at you at many of them. And
title, I'm puzzling about the title. Could the title possibly be "Don't Ask Me Direct Questions"? Like, remember the guy that had Asperger's or something, or whatever the illness was, and you're like, I went to the bathroom, I came back, I didn't know what was going on, but you had this look on your face like, "Woo boy, did you?" And I think I booked him.
Well, I was going to say, you often were the one to bring these characters in. I mean, you were the one who brought in the guy, the typesetter. You brought in the one with the cards. You often brought in these crazies, and I don't know if you did it just to do it. But they would end up being these crazies, and I would look at you like, you got to be kidding me. Because back then, too, our interviews were 45 minutes long. So we had to
Because
fill
we had
the
a 2-hour
time.
live show, we had to fill the time. And
My gosh.
back to Lisa Birnbach, though, it was a sad day because Katie got the call. We were just about to go on air, and she said Tim's running late. But as the hour progressed to the second hour, and Lisa and Chip came in, and you clearly weren't going to make it. We went to break at one point, and Katie came over to me, and I said, Tim is going to be like. I said, this is heartbreaking for him because he really wants to be here for this. Oh, well.
Yeah, it happens. That happened to us several times. Our very first show when we came onto this platform for doing the video feed in the studio, remember the same thing happened. There was an accident on the highway because I would always get the train. I would show up in Manhattan about 2 hours early. And it was our debut show, and there was an accident on 95 that shut everything down and missed the trains. I think we got in there exactly 5 minutes before or something, but no, sometimes with the train, you never, and you were always a pro. You were able to handle it and go forward. But it's, you never know what's going to happen. Guests don't show up. That was another thing.
I actually think that first time we ever did the video broadcast, I think it really worked because you just came in cold. You had no idea what was going. You had not even seen the studio. I had toured Compound, and I had checked it out, and I met with the folks there. And so this was new to you, and I think that maybe that was this really. You gave a great performance too. You sat right down, you looked at the camera, boom, and you had never done it before. So had you had the time, you might have not, done such a great performance. I don't know.
You could overthink it. Yeah, you could overthink that stuff. So,
question, and this goes to everybody. Last week, early in the week, I thought, Thursday was the 40th anniversary of the release of The Empire Strikes Back, one of my absolute favorite Star Wars films of all time. It even eclipses the first one. That movie, as you know from my Facebook post, I would drive down to Orange, Connecticut on a moped.
I don't know how you did that. I know did we talk about that? Did you go on Route 8 in that moped?
Partially through Naugatuck, and then we would take side roads. But yeah, of course, we had a little different traffic pattern back then. Anyway, I had determined that Thursday was going to be my day. It was going to be my Star Wars day. I was going to do work. Then I was going to watch the movie, and I had a model kit I was going to build, something stupid like that. But I woke up. I had this migraine thing. The day went off the rails. It was not a good day. And later, I saw our friends Pat and Gary for dinner over the weekend, and on their patio. And I mentioned Thursday, and Pat said, "Ooh, Thursday was a wickedly bad day for me." I said, "Well, what happened to you?" And through the course of conversation, I discovered that all of us, at least every 2 weeks, are having these really down days. Have you experienced this? Besides events that are going on, I mean, just it's overwhelming. You're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" Right?
Yeah, I would say I have, as probably everyone has, and there's other, life goes on, right? There's other things that happen. We didn't talk about it, but I lost my beloved dog. There was things that happened, and the next few days out of that, from there, I was out of sorts. But no, you're right, and I think a lot of people are having those sort of days. We don't know what's going to go on. We don't know what the third quarter or the end of the year will be like. It's a big mystery. You could plan all you want, but we never plan for what we have now.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, and there is no planning. And I just literally, before we came on air, I saw an article that many companies are cutting people's salaries. So let's say you still kept your job during this time period. Now you're on a reduced salary, and You didn't see that coming. So I think, Pat just wrapped up the conversation by saying, he goes, be good to yourself, be patient with yourself. And if you have a bad day, it's a bad day. Let it roll on through. And but that was last week. But I'm better now, and I invented it. Oh, and then actually, of course, I should say, to wrap up the Star Wars day, hours after this meltdown I had, I didn't do anything. I just felt really terrible all day. I finally started watching The Empire Strikes Back, and Bob comes in and he hits the pause button at one point because we're watching it on Disney Plus. And I said, "Oh, don't stop the movie now. It's the battle on Hoth with the walking tanks, my favorite part. And they did this with stop motion." And I start talking, and he just looks at me and he goes, you're 100% better. And he goes, because now you're telling me all this trivia that I really don't care about.
I love Bob.
he'll let you
tell me all this trivia I don't love it.
Really care about.
Now I know you're better. I know when you're not good when I don't hear from you. I figure something's up. You shut down.
I did. I know, and I didn't talk to anybody, and I did shut down. I might have done
But
some
I actually
emails
did
and
think
stuff.
you did tell me earlier in the week, though, then, and I was being respectful because you did say you were doing a kind of a mental health or a personal day, and you had big plans, and that's why I said to you the next day, hey, did you have a great day off? You're like, it was miserable. It was the worst day I've had in a year, and I was like, oh my God, here I'm thinking you were enjoying yourself and
Building my little model kit, and
right.
yeah.
But not the
Actually,
case.
the day started with something called a retinal migraine. I don't know if anybody's heard of this before. So, Garrett or Steve, you may have had this. Maybe not. Maybe you didn't even know you had it. But here's the deal: you're sitting, and suddenly your vision goes kaleidoscope. You know how you see like colors and stuff through a kaleidoscope, and you can't really focus on things in front of you, but you can see them peripherally. So you know you're not going blind. And so you just can't see. So it lasts for 20 to 30 minutes, and afterwards, usually it doesn't go into a full-blown migraine. Sometimes it does, but that day, my Star Wars day, I had a retinal migraine. 30 minutes later, it cleared up. Then I felt like I was going to throw up because I was nauseous. Then I had to lay down because I did have a migraine.
God.
That's why you didn't hear from me. My miserable day.
Your miserable day. Well, that's okay. Everyone's allowed one, right?
Hey. We're going to want to take this call because I don't know if we missed it or not, but it's Don from Alabama. Don, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I did not watch. I have not been watching. Are we successfully in orbit with the Dragon X?
Nope, launch will not be until about 3:23 your time.
I'm looking outside. I don't see it.
They have moved the crew to the launch stand and are beginning the loading process. But no, we're still about 2 hours away, plus or minus. And
are you for everybody that's listening? For everybody that's listening, SpaceX, private company, is going to be putting 2 Americans into orbit for the first time in 11 years, I think, since we retired the space shuttle.
Let me clarify that just a little bit. SpaceX, the very first commercial enterprise ever, is going to join the club of the United States, the Russians, and the Chinese in putting someone in space. So today will be the day, if not today, Saturday will be the day that private enterprise officially enters manned spaceflight.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
This is not as momentous as, Apollo 11 on the moon, but this date will go down in history, as one of those major milestones in the evolution of space exploration.
So where are they going?
They're going to the space station. They're going to the International Space Station.
So how come we don't know the names of these?
Earth orbit.
Why don't we know the names of these people? Has it just not been publicized enough? Because usually you know who's going up and they talk about it. I haven't seen much news about it.
They are both former shuttle pilots.
Yeah.
The mission commander was actually the pilot of the last space shuttle mission. And I apologize, but I am having a momentary lapse in Doug Hurley and Bob Becken.
Correct.
Becken
That's right.
was a shuttle pilot, but they've both been shuttle pilots before. So,
hey Don, are you? So the history of this SpaceX and what they're flying is the Dragon capsule. So it's the new method of getting people to and from. They have had some failures with this, not as bad as Boeing's Constellation program.
Yep.
But are you worried at all about this? Like, I would hate for anything to go wrong. I want this to be a perfect launch myself, and I'm sure everybody does too. But any misgivings?
Well, there is, it's space flight. There's always a risk. You're dealing with complicated machines that have, literally millions of parts. I will say that SpaceX has, with 2 exceptions, managed to exceed expectations in every case. So, and I'm sure that the weight of private enterprise going into space for the first time has not been lost on their necessity to check and double check, to the point that NASA does not have the final go no go decision on this. SpaceX does.
Wow.
So it will be a private company that will make the final launch determination in consultation with NASA. So this is the equivalent of the very first commercial airplane taking passengers into the air. This is the first commercial enterprise carrying passengers into low Earth orbit.
Yeah, and that there was an article that I read either in Popular Science or The Atlantic about all the stuff that's going to happen after this. If it's successful, there's notions of companies that want to take passengers into elliptical orbits around the Earth. So actually, they'll go higher than the space station for one or two orbits, then return to Earth. Hey, I would love to sign on the dotted line, but you know that this stuff's going to be super duper expensive for years to come. Well, probably beyond my lifetime.
You've got private flights being currently sold for $250,000 a flight, and while that's extreme, that's not the 22 to 30 million that the Russians were charging. So it's not. Once we have more frequency of flight, cost of flights will come down. Once we get better with reusable vehicles, then cost of flights will come down. The biggest cost in this, other than fuel, is platform. So
is the vehicle? Now, does this one return to Earth? Is the booster for Dragon X does land properly?
Every component of this launch, if successful, will return to Earth and be reused. So there is no throwaway booster in this phase. Everything comes back. Everything lands. Everything gets put back together and relaunched.
How are they getting back from the space station?
There'll be another flight sent up to ferry them down, or there is the Soyuz return module if something goes bad.
Right.
But
so Don, they're going to actually complement. There's only one American on the ISS now, and I think there are 2 or 3 Russians. And they're going to be up there for a little while. Is it the Dragon that's going to go back up to retrieve them?
Yes, the Dragon, until Constellation is online, Dragon, barring any setbacks, God forbid, will be the ferrying system, and we will stop buying seats on the Russian launch platforms.
Which by the way, that's been fraught with politics, too, because even though our countries are united on the scientific front, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's not a smooth, it's not a really smooth relationship. And if you've got to consider, it has been, America did, prior to today, America did not have a space launch platform since 2011. So the most technologically advanced country on the planet did not have a mechanism for getting people into space.
Yeah,
at least in the public sphere. We don't know about the military.
Yeah,
remember, the military space budget is 6 times NASA's.
I know, and this was, I believe that Bush made the decision to retire he made the early decision to do it. And then Obama finally did it, and then we have President Trump. So it's been 3 presidents that this whole story is have an arc over, right, of getting man back in space. I'm very excited about it, and I think events like this, given what we've been dealing with for the past few months, it's fun, it's galvanizing, and it's exciting.
And it's not even the coolest thing that's going to happen this week.
What is the coolest thing that's going to happen this week?
The Navy has test-fired a 150 kilowatt laser, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that is the beginning of the end of missile technology and the beginning of energy-based weapon systems that function at great range. And
so just to clarify for folks, what Don's saying is the laser can take out an ICBM?
The laser can take out a drone. It can take out a cruise missile. It can take out a lot of platforms. They haven't specifically said ICBM, and this is mobile. So this is actually sitting on a ship and is able to fire from, it's a mobile platform. So it's able to fire from anywhere in the world if you can get the ship there. Its range has not been publicized, but, best guess is on a clear day, you're talking maybe 100, 150 kilometers. But the very first laser, which I got to see, the very first weaponized laser, was a 10 kilowatt system, and it was the size of a house. This is the size of an SUV. So as we progress, these weapons get smaller and more powerful, and we get much, much closer to our first Star Destroyer, which is what I'm really looking for.
I was just gonna say, and then phasers, phasers
Yes.
on stun or to kill. All right, we're gonna get on with the
Yes.
show, Don. I want to thank you
Thanks.
for calling. Have a great one, my friend.
Bye.
Tim,
I
I
hate to fly. I don't know. What would you do on that? You go up there and you zip around the world. Then what? Do you get peanuts and a soda?
You would not want to be in orbit, like
I
around the
would
Earth.
no more want to do that than go to Afghanistan.
I would die to do it, man. I think it would
What are
be
you going to do?
so cool.
You can't see. Can you look
Nothing.
out the window? Can you look out the window?
Yeah, well, yes, and some of the astronauts do, in fact, just hang out at this beautiful multi-paned thing. I think they call it the observatory or something, but they just look down at the Earth. I think it would be mesmerizing.
Okay.
But I was watching. Yeah, this is what I love about Don. Don's down in Space City, right? Space Central, Rocket City, and he's tapped into all this stuff, and I love it. So we have the laser was news to me. That was news to me.
I actually saw that they had put the laser on a couple of the old, I think, C-10 gunships, and they were showing it. I watched some defense video on it. It was quite interesting. I thought it certainly is a game changer if it does what it's supposed to do.
I'll say, yeah. All right, we're going to move on, and I'm going to ask you now specifically what caught your eye.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So there were a couple things that caught my eye, but this one I thought was interesting just because of the headline, and I know how much that you love eggs. So the title is "People Are Buying an Astronomical Amount of Eggs Right Now," and this came from the Modern Farmer article. And so what they're saying is that in the past months, past 2 months, the sales of eggs have gone up 44% in 1 week in March. And the last data for the last week in March, the egg sales have gone up 86%. And of course, everybody knows why. People were out running to buy food and stock up. And for one thing, eggs are cheap. They also will last forever. They'll last a lot longer than other sorts of staples. And they said the other reason they think is because while many people didn't celebrate Easter or didn't do a lot of Easter egg dyeing, a lot of people are at home trying to be cooks again, right? So they're trying to make cakes and pies and brownies and all kinds of things. And so now they're buying a lot of eggs. Eggs have gone up in price, though, as well. Eggs have spiked they're now average $3.09 a dozen. I've never bought eggs for $3.09 a dozen. Have you? I always get the organic eggs. I thought that was cheap, $3.09, but that's nationally.
Okay, so I'm used to paying more than that, and so are you. I'll just say that.
Yeah. So they said that it is a cheap alternative for getting your protein. It's also eggs are also great in terms of ease. Who doesn't know how to make an egg? If you don't know how to do anything, you can certainly make an egg. And so there's the easiness there. And they also said it's part of the trio of items that grocery stores use as staples. For instance, before every winter storm, what do? You get eggs, milk, and bread. So they said that in terms of people shopping, when they're in there, they're always going to grab eggs, milk, and bread. So I just thought that was interesting. They said there is no egg shortage. There's going to be no egg shortage. There's no threat of an egg shortage. There's plenty of eggs, but the sales have gone through the roof. So that's what caught me.
I'm part of that problem. I've always eaten, my egg habit.
Love an egg.
I usually have 2 whole eggs and an egg white mixed together with some Canadian bacon in the morning. That's mostly my everyday for the last 8 years. That's kind of crazy.
Do you really have the same thing? You have the same thing every morning?
Almost every morning, yeah. Sometimes I vary it up, a little oatmeal. But basically, if I'm going to go on a cycling trip or something in the morning or a bike ride, I'll do oatmeal in the morning. But eggs really do it for me, man. I love eggs. They're the simplest thing in the world, right? You could be home and I'm hungry. I don't want to cook a big dinner. I'll make myself a little omelet. 10 minutes later, you're done. They're the best food.
I had eggs this morning with some bacon and avocado. It's very good. Keeps you full. You don't need lunch.
Yes. It's high protein, yeah.
So what caught your eye?
Well, this comes to us from a listener who sent a letter to us at letters@focusgroupradio.com. By all means, reach out to us there or on our social platforms as well. And the listener's name is Joshua, and he sent me a listing to a home outside of Pittsburgh, or maybe in Pittsburgh, that's on Zillow currently. It's been on for over 9 days. It's had 2.5 million views, and 17,000 people have bookmarked it to go back later. The unique thing about this property is that it's kind of weird inside. So Since if you're not watching, I'll describe it. I'm showing two pictures now. On the left, there's a picture of a very unassuming brick ranch. In fact, Tim, would you even call it a ranch house?
Yeah, it's a brick rancher.
Brick ranch.
The suburbs.
Now you see they have a problem over to the right side with the door being obscured by a shrub that's bigger than the house. So that's going to come down, right? But you enter. Well, I'll just read some of the description from the real estate listing. Do you like fun and adventure? See this one-of-a-kind brick ranch converted into a 2-story. Enter the door to a 13th century castle decor sunken living room with dramatic high oaked beam ceiling, hardwood floor, brick fireplace, a ladder to an elevated library, and then time travel at warp speed to the 25th century starship.
Sounds grand.
There is a mural on one side of this living room that looks like a Peter Max kind of pop art thing of the solar system, but then a talking space alien greets you as you walk toward the floor-to-ceiling outer space wall mural. That's what we were just describing. The dining room is a command center whose rear wall opens to the spaceship main bridge, working computer and controls from an Apache helicopter. So somebody took the controls from an Apache helicopter and made this space command room. It looks a little random to me, Apache speakers and a 55-inch TV screen, pocket door to the functional galley kitchen. Open the hatch door and you find the laundry, large storage area, and workshop. Take the spiral staircase to explore the second floor, which has a den area, a walkway, and 3 bedrooms. There's a tropical island themed bedroom and a 1970 hippie crash pad bedroom and a queen water bed. How they got that in there? Tropical themed hippie crash pad and a water bed. Level backyard with a pool under warranty and patio area. Beautiful wisteria over pergola, if that's pronounced that right. So I'm sorry, it's 480 Rainier Drive in Pittsburgh, PA. So thank you, Joshua, for sending this. It's the city where I was born. I was not born in this house, although many might mistake this as being my home of origin. Given the space theme, I would have done it far more tastefully, personally. What did you think?
I actually saw this listing too. I'm a member on one of these social media sites of people post each week. It was similar to Lurid Digs. People post these listings of crazy houses for sale. And there was one in Minneapolis too that was just out of this world, so to speak. But how do you go ahead and sell? I didn't pay attention to the price on the house. Did it have a price? I was trying to think, how do you go about selling something like this?
First of all, yeah, I don't know the price. I do think I seem to remember seeing 180,000. I could be wrong. It's worth a check. So don't hold me to it. Secondly, good friend of mine up here, my friend Linnea, I've talked about her a lot. She's in real estate. We cycle a great deal together. And one day I was telling her that I wanted to do something to the house. And she said, oh, no. You don't want to do that. And you know this too, Tim. And I said, why don't I? She goes, you want to think about the next owner. The more you customize a house, the less appealing it is to someone in the future because it's not to their specifications or not what they like. This house has been this is someone's dream palace, and I love it that they did this. But whoever buys this, it's a gut job, right?
What was it that you wanted to do to your house? Do you want to add a room or something?
We wanted to take the back building, the garage and guest house. We wanted to take it down, put a new slab, build an official new building and then she just said, let someone else do that.
Let somebody else do it. Yeah.
Of course, lately, since we've owned the house for over 20 years now, I'm beginning to rethink that plan because if we are here for a lot longer, it would be nice to have an official building that wasn't falling down back there. You stayed in there. I remember one time you were a guest and you came out in a towel. You're like, hey, I hate to tell you this, but I flushed the toilet and everything's backing up back. Do you remember that when we had a clog in that shower drain?
Well, that happens.
And then I thought of putting a hot tub
it is a great addition to the house. Oh, hot tub's great.
And I mentioned it to Lane, and she says, okay, let's walk around and sight the tub. And so we were walking around, and she said, if you put it here, your neighbors could see this, and it's going to sit out there, and it's going to get moldy, and you're not going to have interest in it after 2 years, and it's maintenance. And so she talked me right out of that hot tub, man.
I would love a hot tub. I would like a pool too, but that's not going to happen either. So
now we have, thank you, Garrett. We have John on the phone. Maybe John knows about this house in Pittsburgh. Welcome to the focus group, John.
Hi, John. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
I don't know about that house. I do know about homes with pools and hot tubs, though, because I'm in the Springs, of course. But I would never buy a house that is themed like this. I mean, it may not go with your color patterns or anything else like that. I don't know why somebody would do that to a place. I mean, it seems pretty obscure to me.
So you don't want a command center or the remnants of an Apache helicopter to eat in front of? I mean, there's an appeal there to some. Like, it looks like there's a submarine theme too. That's just me, but.
Are you kidding? I have airplanes that fly between Marine bases and Navy bases in San Diego up to 29 Palms over my head, and half the time I think that Palm Springs is at war with Indio. So I don't really want that theme in my house. I have to say too that I think that I do think that Mr. Bennett looks quite handsome with all that fuzz on his face too.
You know, John, I've been lazy with the shaving, and John and I talked about it. For some reason, my mustache is dark, and one of our listeners, Paul and Mass, had suggested I get a mascara stick, and then John called me out on it immediately when it went dark. But I'm trying to keep it trimmed because it does feel a little odd. I had a beard once in college for about 10 minutes, and that was the only time I ever grew facial hair. So I thought this was the time.
Maybe as a winter option, you know. I mean, I understand that back in your neck of the woods.
Keep it as a winter option. When you're hair challenged like me, I have no options, basically. Like, someone said to me the other day, why don't you grow your hair out? Like, I'm going to look like Friar Tuck at the end of the day.
Right? That? You look like somebody from one of those superhero shows. Maybe your love of eggs and all that, it's all interconnected.
Hey, kid. There was a listener once who called us, and he said, I think of Tim and John as Superman and Lex Luthor. And I was on the phone. I took the call, and I said, well, which one am I? He goes, well, you're obviously Lex Luthor. He goes, Tim's Superman. Need I say more on that front, right? Tim, in fact, you have a rabid fan base. Everybody loves Tim. Tim's like the teddy bear. Tim, they comment on his hair, his beard, this and that.
I'm the quiet one, John. I'm the quiet one, maybe.
Well, I'm glad I actually get to see you guys live for once, because usually I'm doing my thing about this time of day. So it's nice to see you guys, and just wanted to say hello from the coast and come visit the Springs.
It's good to hear your voice, John. Thanks.
It's so good to hear from you, John. Thanks you so much for calling today. It made the day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Bennett, I believe. Oh, it's a fantastic surprise. My God, it's John, right? It's so cool. Yeah. Business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
This one was today's date, May 27th. There were a number of birthdays with big captains of industry and lots of famous names you would hear. But this one particular woman I had come across, and I thought not somebody that I really knew, and I thought I had an interesting story. So we decided that she's our business birthday today. Amelia Jenks Bloomer, born May 27th, 1818. She died September 30th in 1894 at 76 years old. She was an American women's rights and temperance advocate. So the temperance people didn't want us drinking alcohol, John.
Mm-hmm.
So and she was very religious, but what she was really known for is her work with Lily, which was a magazine or a newspaper. She was the first woman to own, operate, and edit a newspaper for women. And she was initially based in New York, and ended up moving out to Iowa, and was very much a women's rights advocate, and was most known for she wanted to reform the way women dressed in the 1800s. And so she had got a message from somebody about wearing something called like pantalones or pantaloons, things that they would wear in Europe, and would mix those with some sort of a tunic. And so she advocated in her newspaper that women should wear these things because they were more comfortable. And that's where we get the name Bloomers from, because of her last name, Bloomer.
The minute you brought this up and the picture came up, I'm like, this can't be the person they've named Bloomers after. I thought it's like a Jeopardy question. It's almost too obvious. But true to form, it's the woman they named Bloomers after, right?
Yeah, and it was really when I read that, I thought, well, that's funny because in her own right, she was friends with Susan B. Anthony. She was friends with other women that were trying to get women's rights and equality in the late 1800s. Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, but it was really she became known for this advocacy of having women wear more comfortable clothing. And so that's how the bloomers came about, or she got the name of bloomers. It was actually somebody else that invented them, but they were tagged with her because she's talked about it all the time in her newspaper. She ended up changing her mind, though, in the late 1850s and decided when crinoline came out that was going to be comfortable enough. So she stopped wearing as she called it, the bloomer costume. It was a combination of a tunic and pantalettes, Pantelletts.
The bloomer costume. She actually called her own outfit a costume. You gotta love costume. That, right? Okay.
So it ended up. So the costume was worn publicly first by an actress named Fanny Kemble. She was an actress out of New England. And they said it was modeled after trousers worn in the Middle East and Central Asia, topped with a short dress or skirt and vest. But here she was. She was a way ahead of her time, obviously. And there's statues and parts of Seneca Falls in New York have her house as a National Historic Landmark, and a bunch of other places. She was in the National Women's Hall of Fame. She's gotten a number of other awards. And somebody recently in 2002, the American Library Association has produced all of her old publications. And they said it's significant feminist content for young readers and a good look back as to where the whole civil and equal rights movement started for women back in the 1800s. So happy birthday to Amelia Bloomer.
of Bloomer fame. In case you happen to be wearing, they even had women used to actually wear bathing suits like that. They had the skirt thing and those pant things way back in the day. Now,
I always thought bloomers were like, oh, well, there's your bloomers, right? It was like underwear, weren't bloomers?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, like some kind of blousey underwear, right?
Right. Yeah.
Good business birthday.
Yeah. So, hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a shop talk, and John found this. It's an interesting chat about failure and some of the business ideas from the founder of Amazon. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with The Focus Group.
Really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Try, really try. Believe, really believe. What was the other one we're missing there, Tim?
Try, really believe, really believe. You know what? I don't know. That's funny. Now that you put me on the spot. Try, really try.
Believe, really believe. I used to know it by heart. There was Norman Vincent Peale they were listening to, and that was clips from Grey Gardens. As Tim teased at the beginning of the break, a little article that I teased at the beginning of the show about failure as a part of every successful business came across an article that featured Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame, and it goes like this. The headline reads, Jeff Bezos to exec after product totally flopped. You can't for 1 minute feel bad. The flop that he was referring to was the Amazon Fire, which was a phone that they released. That flop and the Fire phone, it cost $170 million. It was $170 million write-down that Amazon took when the Fire phone came out. But out of that phone and the development of that phone came Alexa and voice command and voice activation. So this was interesting to me because I think that I personally need to be reminded as a professional and as a business owner that that failure is not always a bad thing. And in fact, you don't learn unless you do make a misstep. And that was my big takeaway here, is that you shouldn't be afraid of it. And in fact, the bigger the failure, perhaps you were trying something really big. Maybe the next success that comes is going to be equally as big. Did you like this piece, Tim? Did it speak to you career-wise?
I did, because I liked his form of leadership. As you mentioned, he had two insights and for his tenets of leadership and success. And the first one is failure is a part of growth. And I think failure is a part of growth when the organization culturally accepts the fact that you're not going to get everything right and you're not going to be dinged for it. There's a lot of fear within organizations that you just do everything you're supposed to do and stay within your budget guidelines and don't think outside of anything different, and you'll be okay. And I think Bezos' success was, you know what, failure is going to be a part of growth. And the more important part about that is what you said about how they found Alexa through this, is that you have to be curious and experiment and be allowed to wander a little bit in your thoughts. And that's what leads you to other areas. So what you worked on may not have been a huge success, but out of that developed a bunch of other things. And I think so many organizations have that fear base of, oh my God, in their minds would have been, I wasted $170 million on this failure. Whereas Bezos says, hey, we learned from this, we grew from this, and out of this we were able to do. Who's going to argue about the success of Alexa, right? And
it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you are right. Like, you and I worked with many clients who they may do an ad campaign and you'll say to them, and Tim has often said this in meetings, and I've seen this happen. Like the client will say, we want to spend X, Y, and Z on, and Tim will say, well, you really shouldn't do that. You should be in the market for the whole year and spend this amount. And then they spend this little amount and they don't get any traction and they're upset because they think they made a bad decision. That's a little different than this. But you have to try before you succeed, right? And that one quote that you talked about earlier, you have to be willing, as they say here, you have to be willing to float and to be curious and experiment. That reminded me of a hard lesson I learned from an old mentor of mine. I used to do a lot of work for Cambridge University Press, and I was vexed by a problem. I like that word, vexed. I'm pretty vexed. And my mentor, Tom, over lunch one day said to me, he goes, you really need to cultivate the idea of being patient with not knowing what you don't know, because it will eventually, you'll figure it out. But you have to be okay with not knowing the answer right away. And that bugged the crap out of me for the longest time until I realized he's right. Sometimes we maybe have the answer, we're thinking about it, we're putting the pieces together, but it's not coming quick enough. And this actually goes to something I was going to ask you about too, Tim. You know, time to wander, time to experiment, time to free think, that doesn't really jibe with a desk job, does it?
You know, it's difficult to. It reminded me a lot of how Subaru, back to my corporate days as an example, developed the Outback. There was people initially thought that was a crazy idea to take a passenger vehicle, which was a station wagon, and modify it to have all the characteristics and capabilities of an SUV without the downside of a truck or four-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. And so a lot of that was done by not being at your desk, right? It's about talking with consumers, being out in the field, and not being strapped to the conventional, you're here from 9 to 5 and then you leave and you're just a cog in the wheel. And that short stint I had after I left Subaru, you remember my frustration of being the company culture there was you had to be strapped to your desk. You couldn't even go out for lunch, which I think was a real mistake. And you do your best thinking. You've said this all the time. You do your best thinking when you're away from the desk or you're on your bike or you're doing something different. It doesn't mean you're not working. And that's what I never understand about people. And I think in this new time that we're in right now is that I think they're finding out that people are more productive. They're seeing it when you're not necessarily strapped to a desk or in an office with all the other things that come with that, right? But there are ways you can be productive that don't require you to be in a specific location. And there are ways to be productive and effective. So I like this because I thought it was a culture that I would thrive in because it wasn't so strict and stringent in terms of, I don't like rules. So
no, and I also had a very stark memory of when a couple of years ago when I took my animation program, which I really, really loved to death. Those 2 years were great, but there were some down moments when I was afraid I wouldn't pass. I got to pass. I think about it now.
Why would you think you weren't going to pass? You worked your butt off on that.
Yeah, but one time I had a particularly low point and I had this really bad critique and I spoke to Tim. He's like, what's going on? I said, here's what's going on. I got this critique. And you listened very patiently. And then you said, which is one of the reasons why we're great friends and I love you so much. You're like, you just said, well, isn't that the point? And you so surprised. And I said, what do you mean? Isn't that the point? And you said, well, you're learning. You're not supposed to get it right out of the box. You're supposed to fall down and pick yourself up again, and you're going to get it better. Then you'll figure out next time. It made my brain, like the gears just stop spinning when you said that, because I'm like, it was such a good observation. It reminded me that yes, this is a school thing. It's a project. Right. It's not life. And in fact, that shot became one of the best shots I ever did. That once I figured that out, and it was because I failed at it to start. So, but I had to have you say, isn't that the point? Aren't you learning?
Well, that's a schizophrenia of working in a business anyway. Is that there's a emotion and personality play a part into it, and people get very emotional about their work and invested in their work. And you as a creative person are very much that personality. And sometimes I would always say to you over the years is that it's not personal. If someone doesn't like a campaign you did, or someone doesn't like a headline, or someone doesn't like an ad, it's not that they don't like John Nash, but they're also paying for you to help them find what they like. And that sometimes it might not be exactly what you like, but your job or your service would be to try to satisfy the client that way. And sometimes I think people overall take that stuff too seriously. It's just business. It's not personal. When people make it personal, it becomes an issue. But a lot of times, if you just say to yourself, you know what, this is a business situation, and we'll move on. So
I recommend that everybody have a Tim Bennett in their life. You need that kind of person to call to remind you. And you've done this at least, I don't know, 100 times over the last 20 years of my business career. Oh,
a lot this year.
You ain't kidding me. Sometimes Tim gets on the phone with me and he goes, John, and we'll finish a conference call and we'll get critique on something. And usually Tim and I quarterback these calls. Like, so we'll finish and I'll call him right back, or he'll call me. Oh boy, did you pick that up? Did you get that? And then one time I pick up the phone and I call Tim, and Tim goes, before you go off the handle, you're not supposed to have an ego. It's not about you. We're going to move on and fix the problem. And he got my mind straight right away. Right.
Yeah, no, hey, I learned that from somebody too. I learned that over the years, and you can learn it from everybody. I've learned some of the smartest things from many peers or many people that even people that reported to me. So it's good to take advice, and it's good to what is it they always say? If somebody offers you a mint or advice, take it.
Mint or an advice? Have I heard this before?
Yeah, it's like, you ever heard that before? Somebody offers you a mint or advice, but it's usually if somebody offers you advice, take it. Doesn't mean you're going to listen to it, but take it. Take the advice.
And it's usually well-intentioned, yeah.
And if somebody offers you a stick of gum or candy or mint,
take it.
Take it. It's similar to the woman at Volkswagen we worked with, Megan, where she said, if somebody offers you the opportunity to go to the restroom when you're on a road trip, even if you don't have to go.
Go.
Yeah, right.
I remember that? That was a great line. So it's a good article, and it's a good reminder to all that failure comes in many forms. Maybe you're writing a resume. Maybe the resume you have that you're job hunting with is not getting you the traction. Don't view it as a failure. Hit the rewrite button and see where you go with that. By the way, I don't know why I picked resumes. Maybe they're on my mind. I do not like them. Have you checked? Like, I reread my current one. I thank you. Your vocal.
I hate them. You know what? And I don't think people really read them. And now what happens with resumes, right? We've heard this as it goes through computers, and people are even interviewing with artificial intelligence. I had a friend that went through 3 interviews and never talked to a person. She was talking to a computer, and you have to learn how to look at the camera. That's kind of passed me by, I hope. But
Tim, we pray that you didn't tell me the part where she had to look at the camera. I know what you're talking about. And when
she was concerned because that was the feedback she got, was she didn't have good eye contact. She said it's a computer screen eye contact. And she had to be looking right at the red dot or the green dot, right? Which I have a problem doing. But so she had to practice looking at the green dot for the next interview. And she finally said, "Can I just talk to somebody? Can I just actually talk to a person?" But yeah, that's what's happening now, which I think is horrible. And listen, I used to interview hundreds of people each year, and you scan a resume, but you really know when you have to meet somebody face to face and talk to them and decide whether you think you like each other and you want to do business together, right? I mean, that's what the bottom line is to me.
I think so.
The resume is usually just a bunch of made up platitudes.
Yeah, and keywords now. Keywords.
Yeah.
Like I reread mine. I thought, I don't even know the person. This is not me. I have to grapple with that at some point, but not for a while. Anyway.
No, hopefully not. Hey, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, John. Thanks to our boys in the booth, Garrett and Steve. Thanks for our listeners, John and Don, who called today. We always love when you guys call. You can call the numbers on the bottom of the screen there. Be sure to find all of our audio and video programming at focusgroupradio.com. And be sure, if you head over to our social media to watch us live, that you like us over on Facebook. It's Focus Group Radio. It's the same at YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Focus Group Radio. And we'd like to have you guys joining us every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. East. Also, be sure to catch our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which you could also find at focusgroupradio.com. Comes out every Tuesday morning. It also gets put up on our feed at Facebook as well. So we hope you all have a great week and you have a good start to summer. And we'll see you next Tuesday, I think it is, isn't it, John, for Unbuttoned? Everyone have a great
next Tuesday, correct.
Right. Don't text and drive, arrive alive. I think you messed it up last week, John. Now I did. Have a good week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.